That's the problem.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I mean, on that subject, obviously all this ultimately at some point leads to a revolution, and ultimately that would be violent if nothing has been done. That's just human nature. But many years ago when I was pondering this, and it was inevitable that this would happen, I did wonder what the solution would actually be. Now, we're talking, for example, about all these people that you've interviewed. We're all aware of people within the truth movement and various groups who are fighting in their own way against this oppression that is taking place. And in summary, it is a group of Zionist occult bankers who issue our currency. That is what gives them control of our entire economy worldwide, and the use of supercomputers in the stock exchange and so on. All of which is a matter of fact. So it did dawn upon me that if at some point all of these people who are out there talking, giving their presentations and so on, if we all perhaps just took one day out and came together with any others who wanted to join us, and actually, rather than having a revolution, we did something revolutionary, and that is go down to London and ask our representatives, our leaders, to come out and answer a question to the people. And we simply wouldn't move until they answered that. And that question would be something quite simple, such as, why do you allow a group of private bankers to issue our currency as a debt, thereby creating all of this debt problem in the first place, when you don't have to do this? I personally wish that people would come together and do that, because I believe the process of doing that, once they ignore us or start shooting at us with their gas canisters or whatever they want to do, a group of peaceful people with an intellectual but very simple, straightforward question, lovingly put.
Love and intent.
Yeah, with intent. I think it could change this country. It's the very fact that they won't answer us that will change the country.
Well,
Not get to the answer.
Mark, ever since you were on my show, I've looked very long and hard at all this. The fact that the Federal Reserve banks in America are privately owned and that the Bank of England has effectively private shareholders. I mean, the Bank of England was privatised after the Second World War, and yet why is it that we're allowing it to manufacture money, print money, although it's all electronic, and lend it to us, if you like, even though we didn't create the debt? And why are we paying interest to something that we officially own? Why are we paying interest? I've got some figures here which I've just looked up. The UK national debt is about £900 billion, and this year alone that debt will grow by £167.9 billion, and the 2010 interest on the national debt will cost £42.9 billion this year, which is more than we spend on defence. And just to put the word billion into perspective, I thought if you've got a moment, I'm going to read you something.
Fire away.
1 billion seconds ago, it was 1959. 1 billion minutes ago, Jesus was alive, assuming you believe he ever lived. 1 billion hours ago, our ancestors were living in the Stone Age. 1 billion days ago, no one walked on the earth on 2 feet. And £1 billion ago was 13 hours and 12 minutes at the rate our government is spending it.
It sounds a bit like the big market. No one walks on 2 feet. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Sorry, that's just a place in Newcastle. Yeah, it is shocking.
We didn't incur the debt, and yet we're paying for it. I don't understand.
I know,
but the mechanism that prints the money. So why are we paying interest to it? To whom are we paying the interest?
But imagine, Theo, that I was the Prime Minister and you are Theo Chalmers and you have me now live to the nation. That's all it would take, is to ask the question. We have a right to ask this question of our leaders, and if they decide to stop us physically from doing that, then that speaks volumes. It's a simple question, and once it's asked, well, we all know that, in fact, there is no answer they can give. I believe this will highlight the issue to the public so that they can intellectually grasp the scam. Now, once that has happened, all of this other esoteric stuff and historical stuff and so on starts to make sense. It can all then be tackled, because once we take these vipers out of the equation simply by exposing them, simply by asking a question. I don't know if you've ever, Theo, studied or looked at Grail law over the centuries, but when I did, one thing kept standing out, and that was that the solution to any problem is not the answer, it's the question. If you ask the question in the right way, it solves the problem. Ponder that one. That's the basis of Grail law. Mike, what do you reckon?
I've always thought that, actually. I've always thought that I always know, and I think everybody always knows the answer, and that the problem is, actually, what is the question?
Exactly. So that we asked the question. I've been working for many years on that question, and one day, and that day is not too far off, I personally will go and ask it. But I would love to think that on that day there will be so many more around us, because the people need to do this. This is the people's time. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So let's come back, as we're talking about the banks and the economic collapse. I've mentioned what my solution should be. We have a truth movement that's springing up around the UK. Have you, Theo, actually spoken to any other truth groups as such?
No, I haven't done any public speaking on these subjects, no, because I haven't particularly felt qualified to do it, to be honest, because I don't have a platform as such. You know, I'm used to asking the questions and absorbing the answers, if you like, and doing an endless amount of research and reading, hundreds of books and looking at thousands of things on the internet and, building up my base of knowledge, if you like. But I haven't been like, Ian R. Crane or David Icke or one of these people who goes out and says, this is so. Because, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I know lots of stuff, and I'm convinced about quite a lot of it. But there are other things where, I quite like the freedom to be able to change my mind. I don't want to be stuck where I'm saying, yes, the world is controlled by shape-shifting lizard people. Now, it could be that it is, but I don't necessarily know that.
Would you, something relevant to what you mentioned 30 seconds ago about speaking sort of more publicly? Obviously, you're on the television, you can't really get too much more public than that, but would you be interested in doing like a show like ours on TNS Radio?
Well, possibly. Yeah, possibly. I enjoy interviewing other people. That's a real thrill for me. I love it, actually.
Excellent. Well, before we let you introduce our next song, just to remind any listeners that have just joined us, you're listening to Northeast Truth Radio. We are hosted by tnsradio.com, the guys in Freeman Island. This show comes out every night from 9 till 11. There's a different show on pretty much every night of the week. It's all self-funded. If you go to tnsradio.com, the guys there who are doing a great job of hosting this show and all the other shows are looking for your help. If you can spare any amount at all, there's a PayPal donation button on there. Check out all the previous podcasts as well. Check us out on northeasttruth.com. And if you want to chat to other listeners and ourselves and pose questions to us, you can go to our social network at northeatruth.ning.com. There'll be a lot of changes going online within the coming week. So if any of the sites are temporarily down, just check back in a few days. Theo, before the break, I think we touched on the mathematically perfected economy, which is the work of Mike Montagna. Mark, you speak to Mike a lot more than me, so just let our listeners know what he's all about and what the mathematically perfected economy is.
The mathematically perfected economy. Well, if I can recommend that anyone Googles, let me try and remember, what is it? It's
his website is perfecteconomy.com.
Perfecteconomy.com.
Yeah.
Or Google Mike Montagna. You'll find that he has actually created a mathematical solution which allows an economy to be run and managed the way that it needs to be. This, of course, is assuming that we can issue the currency ourselves.
No debt whatsoever.
It's a debt-free economy, but it's well worth a look. There are many other potential solutions out there. One almost feels obliged to say that. I believe all of these solutions can intellectually be introduced once we ask the damned question of our leadership. But moving on.
I think just before we go back to Theo, just for anyone that gets a bit bogged down with the technical sides of, well, what do you mean our currency is printed as a debt? I mean, to the way I say it in the most basic of terms, it's the smaller banks have been given the ability to create money in terms of loans, for example. Now that increases the amount of money in circulation, which obviously increases inflation as well. But if £100 is created, then the liability to pay back, for example, £105 lies on us, being the taxpayers through the state. So, I mean, that's one of the basic ways that I normally say it. And to create this £5 extra, if it was 5%, you would have to create that money again. And because our currency is borrowed into existence, we'd also have to pay 5% on that £5. Is that roughly how it might work, Mark?
Yeah, I'd try to strip it down even simpler than that. I mean, yes, if the currency is issued, the fact remains that the currency with which we can repay the interest never is issued. So in theory, the interest can never be paid. That actually definitively proves that those who are issuing our currency never wanted to be repaid, because they really can't be that stupid. And I can assure you they're not. This is all by design. But coming back to Theo. Come in, Theo.
Just going to add in there, the fact is that it's all fiat currency anyway, which basically means, fiat's the first word of the Old Testament. Fiat lux, let there be light, and it's let there be currency. It's meaningless. It's not backed with anything like gold or sterling, silver. It's not backed with anything. So it's completely meaningless, the currency anyway. And the more they make, the more it devalues. So that's the hidden tax, is inflation.
Exactly.
And, it's only worth something because we're foolish enough to think it's worth something.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also the other thing, there's fractional reserve banking, which you talked about on my show, Mike, which is that, if Bank 1 lends £100 to Bank 2, it doesn't actually have to have the £100. It only has to have, say, £10 in the bank to lend £100. And then the second bank can also lend £100 on the £10 that it's got until it's been watered down so many times. None of it's even backed by paper money. So not only is it not backed by gold or silver, it's not backed by even the paper money. That's how meaningless it is.
And when the inevitable collapse occurred, as it has, it was called the credit crunch, and our governments told the people that we had to bail the banks out, thereby putting us into an irretrievable debt, which will and is bringing the global economy down, again, by design. Go and ask your MPs, everybody, or your political leaders, because this affects you all, whichever country you're listening from. Go and ask your government what happened to that money. Because, as a matter of fact and record, no one actually knows. The banks can't tell you what they spent it on or where it went. Do you think that's right? I don't.